Sometimes the most extraordinary acts of courage come from the most ordinary people. In a world where heroes are often found in movies and books, real heroism still exists in the quiet dedication of those who serve others without expecting recognition. This is the story of Marcus Thompson, a security guard whose split-second decision during a royal visit would not only save a life, but also earn him one of the highest honors from Prince William himself. What started as a routine day at Kensington Palace would become a defining moment that proved how one person's bravery can change everything. This isn't just a story about duty or protocol. It's about the human spirit, the bonds that form between protector and protected, and how true courage shines brightest in the darkest moments. When danger struck without warning, when every second counted, and when failure meant the unthinkable, one man stepped forward. His actions would echo through the halls of royalty and remind us all that heroes walk among us every day, wearing simple uniforms and carrying quiet hearts filled with extraordinary courage. Marcus Thompson adjusted his tie for the third time that morning as he walked through the familiar corridors of Kensington Palace. At 42 years old, he had been working palace security for nearly 15 years, and today felt like any other day in his well-ordered routine. The morning light filtered through the tall windows, casting long shadows across the polished marble floors that he had walked thousands of times before. His shift began at 6 in the morning, as it always did. Marcus arrived early, as he always did, to review the day's schedule and check in with the night security team. His supervisor, James Crawford, handed him the daily briefing with a tired smile. The night had been quiet, just the usual rounds and standard protocol checks. Prince William will be hosting a small gathering this afternoon, James explained, pointing to the highlighted section in the briefing. Nothing too formal, just some charity representatives and a few local community leaders. George will be around too, probably playing in the garden while his father conducts business. Marcus nodded, making mental notes as he always did. Prince George, now 10 years old, was a frequent presence during his father's daytime meetings. The young prince was curious, energetic, and had a particular fondness for exploring every corner of the palace grounds. Marcus had watched him grow from a toddler who barely reached his knee to a confident boy who could name every guard by first name. The morning passed without incident. Marcus completed his rounds, checked the perimeter security systems, and coordinated with the other guards stationed throughout the palace. He had developed relationships with most of the staff over the years, from the kitchen workers who sometimes shared freshly baked scones during his breaks to the gardeners who kept him updated on which areas of the grounds were being maintained. Sarah Mitchell, one of the newer guards, approached him around 10 o'clock with a question about the afternoon's security arrangements. She had only been working at the palace for 6 months and still looked to Marcus for guidance on protocol. The charity representatives will be arriving through the main entrance at 2 o'clock, Marcus explained patiently. We'll have extra security there, but they've all been pre-screened. The real focus needs to be on maintaining clear sight lines and keeping the general public at appropriate distances. Sarah nodded seriously, taking notes in her small notebook. Marcus appreciated her attention to detail. Too many new guards assumed that working at the palace meant nothing dangerous could happen, but Marcus knew better. His training had taught him that threats could emerge from anywhere, at any time, and often from the most unexpected sources. By noon, the palace was buzzing with quiet activity. Staff members prepared the reception rooms, arranging flowers and ensuring everything was perfect for the afternoon's gathering. Marcus could hear the distant sounds of Prince George playing with his nanny in the East Wing, their laughter echoing through the halls. As he walked past the main reception room, Marcus caught sight of Prince William reviewing documents with his private secretary. The prince looked up and offered a brief nod of acknowledgement, which Marcus returned with a respectful bow of his head. In all his years at the palace, Marcus had developed a quiet admiration for Prince William's dedication to his duties and his obvious love for his children. The afternoon began to take shape exactly as planned. The charity representatives arrived punctually at 2 o'clock, a group of 5 individuals who had been working with Prince William's Foundation on various community projects. Marcus recognized 2 of them from previous visits, but the others were new faces who had been thoroughly vetted by security in advance. Among the guests was Dr. Elizabeth Harper, a child psychologist who ran programs for underprivileged youth in London. She had been working with the Prince's Foundation for over 3 years and was passionate about expanding their reach into underserved communities. Beside her stood Robert Chun, a social worker who specialized in family crisis intervention, and Margaret Walsh, an elderly woman who had dedicated her life to organizing food banks across the city. The two newcomers were David Brennan, a former military officer who now ran veteran support programs, and Lisa Rodriguez, a young teacher who had developed innovative educational programs for children in foster care. Both had been recommended by existing partners of the foundation and had undergone extensive background checks before being approved for the visit. Marcus stationed himself in the main corridor outside the reception room, where he could monitor both the meeting and the general flow of palace activity. From his position, he could see Prince William engaging enthusiastically with his guests, discussing their programs, and asking detailed questions about their work with families and children. Prince George appeared around 3 o'clock, as his father had predicted. The young prince had finished his afternoon lessons and was eager to spend time outdoors before dinner. Marcus watched him skip down the hallway toward the garden entrance, accompanied by his nanny, Mrs. Patterson, who had been caring for the royal children for several years. "Good afternoon, Mr. Marcus," Prince George called out cheerfully as he passed. The boy had never been formally instructed to call the guards by their titles, but he had developed his own polite way of addressing the security staff. "Good afternoon, Your Royal Highness," Marcus replied with a warm smile. "Enjoying your day off from lessons?" "Yes, though I still have math homework later," George replied with a slight grimace that made Marcus chuckle. Even young princes, it seemed, had the same relationship with mathematics as most children. Mrs. Patterson smiled at Marcus as they continued toward the gardens. "We'll be in the rose garden if anyone needs us," she said. "The weather's too beautiful to waste indoors." Marcus made a mental note of their location, as he always did when any member of the royal family was moving about the palace grounds. It was second nature to him now, this constant awareness of where everyone was and what potential risks might exist. The meeting in the reception room continued smoothly. Through the partially open door, Marcus could hear Prince William's voice as he discussed funding opportunities and partnership possibilities with the charity representatives. The conversation was animated and positive, with several moments of laughter as the group shared stories about their work with families and communities. Around 3:30, Marcus noticed some activity near the main entrance. A delivery truck had arrived, which wasn't unusual, but something about the driver's behavior caught his attention. The man seemed nervous, checking his watch frequently, and looking around more than necessary for someone making a routine delivery. Marcus activated his radio to check with the front gate security. "Control, this is Thompson. Can you confirm the delivery scheduled for 15:30 hours?" The response came back immediately. "Thompson, we have no scheduled deliveries for this time. All afternoon deliveries were completed by 1400 hours." A cold feeling settled in Marcus's stomach. In 15 years of palace security, he had learned to trust his instincts, and, right now, every instinct was telling him that something was wrong. He began moving toward the main entrance while keeping his radio communication discreet. "Control, please run a check on the delivery vehicle at the main entrance." License plate. Marcus squinted to read the number on the truck, but the angle made it difficult to see clearly. As he approached the entrance, Marcus could see the delivery driver more clearly. The man was approximately 35 years old, wearing a standard uniform, but his movements were erratic. He kept glancing toward the reception room wing of the palace, and his hands were shaking slightly as he handled what appeared to be a standard package. Marcus's training kicked in automatically. He began assessing potential threats and escape routes while maintaining a casual appearance. If this was indeed a threat, the last thing he wanted was to escalate the situation prematurely. But if it wasn't a threat, he needed to determine that quickly and return his attention to the normal security protocols. The driver noticed Marcus approaching and immediately became more agitated. Instead of the typical friendly greeting that delivery personnel usually offered to palace staff, the man avoided eye contact and began fumbling with his clipboard in a way that seemed rehearsed rather than natural. "Good afternoon," Marcus said calmly, maintaining a professional tone. "I don't believe we were expecting any deliveries this afternoon. Could you help me understand what you're delivering?" The driver's response confirmed Marcus's suspicions. Instead of producing proper documentation or explaining his presence clearly, the man began backing toward his truck while mumbling something about a special delivery that had to be today. Marcus activated his radio again, this time with more urgency. "Control, I need backup at the main entrance immediately. Potential security concern with unscheduled delivery." The driver's behavior became increasingly erratic as he realized that Marcus wasn't going to simply allow him to proceed with whatever he had planned. Marcus could see the man's hand moving towards something inside his jacket, and every alarm bell in his experienced mind began ringing at once. At that exact moment, the sound of children's laughter drifted across the palace grounds from the direction of the rose garden. Prince George's voice was clearly audible as he played with Mrs. Patterson somewhere among the carefully maintained hedges and flower beds. The timing was too coincidental for Marcus's comfort. Without breaking eye contact with the suspicious driver, Marcus spoke quietly into his radio. "Control, we need immediate security sweep of the rose garden. Prince George's location may be compromised." The next few seconds stretched out like hours in Marcus's mind. The driver's hand emerged from his jacket holding what appeared to be a small device. Marcus couldn't identify it immediately, but his training told him to assume the worst-case scenario and act accordingly. "Sir, I'm going to need you to step away from your vehicle and show me your hands," Marcus said firmly, his own hand moving instinctively toward his radio to call for immediate backup. Instead of complying, the driver suddenly broke into a run toward the rose garden, dropping his clipboard and abandoning his truck entirely. Marcus felt his heart rate spike as the situation escalated from suspicious behavior to active threat in a matter of seconds. Marcus sprinted after the man, speaking rapidly into his radio as he ran. "Code red, code red. Intruder moving toward rose garden. Prince George and nanny in immediate vicinity. All units respond immediately." The palace grounds, which had seemed so peaceful and secure just moments before, suddenly felt vast and full of potential danger. Marcus could hear the response teams mobilizing through his radio, but he knew that in situations like this, seconds mattered more than backup. His primary responsibility was to reach Prince George before the intruder did, regardless of what the man's intentions might be. As he rounded the corner toward the rose garden, Marcus could see Mrs. Patterson and Prince George about 50 yards ahead, completely unaware of the approaching danger. The young prince was examining something among the rose bushes, his curiosity focused entirely on whatever had captured his attention. The intruder was closing the distance rapidly, and Marcus realized with growing alarm that he might not reach them in time to intercept whatever threat the man posed. His 15 years of training and experience condensed into this single moment where everything he had learned would be put to the ultimate test. Marcus pushed himself harder than he ever had before, his legs burning as he sprinted across the perfectly manicured lawn toward the rose garden. The intruder had a significant head start, but Marcus's years of maintaining peak physical condition for his security role were paying off now. He could see the man stumbling slightly as he ran, suggesting he wasn't as physically prepared for this kind of pursuit. Mrs. Patterson finally noticed the commotion. She looked up from where she was standing near a bench, watching Prince George explore the roses with his characteristic curiosity. Her face immediately registered alarm as she saw a stranger running toward them at full speed, followed by Marcus in his security uniform. "Your Royal Highness, come here immediately," Mrs. Patterson called out, her voice sharp with authority that Prince George had been trained to obey without question. The young prince looked up from the rose bush he had been examining, confusion clear on his face as he tried to understand what was happening. The intruder was now only about 30 yards from Prince George's position. Marcus could see that the device in the man's hand appeared to be some kind of camera or recording equipment, but in high-stress situations, assumptions could be deadly. Whether the device was harmless or dangerous, the man's behavior and unauthorized presence made him a clear threat to the young prince's safety. Marcus made a split-second decision that would define the rest of this day. Instead of continuing to chase the intruder directly, he angled his run to intercept the man's path to Prince George. It meant covering more distance, but it also meant putting himself between the threat and the child he was sworn to protect. "Stop where you are," Marcus shouted, his voice carrying the full authority of his position. "This is royal security. You are on restricted grounds." The intruder ignored Marcus completely, his focus entirely fixed on reaching Prince George. Mrs. Patterson had managed to get the young prince moving toward the garden's main exit, but their progress was hampered by George's natural confusion about the situation. At 10 years old, he understood that something serious was happening, but he couldn't comprehend the level of potential danger. Marcus reached the intercept point just as the intruder was closing in on Mrs. Patterson and Prince George. Without hesitation, he launched himself in a tackle that brought both men crashing to the ground among the carefully tended rose bushes. The impact was hard enough to knock the wind out of both of them, but Marcus's training had taught him to recover quickly from physical confrontations. The device the intruder had been carrying flew from his hand and landed several feet away in the grass. Marcus could now see that it was indeed a camera, but attached to it were several small components that he couldn't immediately identify. In his experience, when someone went to such lengths to get unauthorized footage of a royal family member, there was usually more to the story than simple celebrity obsession. The intruder fought back with surprising strength, suggesting he had some training or experience in physical confrontation. Marcus found himself in a genuine struggle as the man tried to break free and continue toward Prince George. Mrs. Patterson, showing remarkable presence of mind, had managed to get the young prince behind a large ornamental fountain that provided both physical barrier and concealment. "Security, Rose Garden, immediate assistance required," Marcus managed to say into his radio while grappling with the intruder. He could hear the response teams getting closer, but the struggle was intense enough that he couldn't afford to wait for backup to arrive. The intruder suddenly shifted tactics, pulling a small knife from his belt that Marcus hadn't noticed during their initial confrontation. The blade wasn't large, but in close quarters, any weapon could be lethal. Marcus felt his training kick in as he adjusted his grip and positioning to account for the new threat. "Get back," the intruder shouted, his voice desperate and panicked. "I just need to get to the boy. I need to show them what they're hiding." The words confirmed Marcus's worst fears. This wasn't a random attempt to get photos of Prince George. The man clearly believed he was exposing some kind of conspiracy or cover-up involving the royal family. Marcus had encountered similar situations before, though never with such direct physical threat to a royal family member. Marcus managed to grab the man's wrist and control the knife hand, but the struggle continued as both men fought for control of the weapon. The intruder was motivated by whatever delusion or conspiracy theory had driven him to this extreme action, while Marcus was motivated by 15 years of dedication to protecting the royal family and a genuine personal affection for Prince George. Mrs. Patterson's voice cut through the struggle as she called out, "Thomas, stay behind the fountain. Don't look, just stay where you are." Marcus realized she was using Prince George's middle name, something the staff sometimes did in informal situations. Even in this crisis, she was trying to maintain some normalcy for the frightened child. The sound of approaching footsteps indicated that backup was finally arriving. Marcus could hear multiple security personnel converging on the rose garden from different directions. But the immediate threat was still very real, as the intruder continued to struggle violently while trying to reach Prince George's hiding spot behind the fountain. Marcus managed to slam the intruder's knife hand against the ground hard enough to dislodge the weapon, which skittered away across the grass. But, even disarmed, the man continued fighting with desperate strength, clawing and striking at Marcus while trying to break free. "The truth needs to come out," the intruder shouted, his voice getting more frantic as he realized his opportunity was slipping away. "People need to see what they're really like. The boy is the key to everything." These words chilled Marcus more than any physical threat could. Whatever this man believed about Prince George or the royal family, his delusion was strong enough to drive him to extraordinary lengths. Marcus had seen similar cases during his security training, situations where conspiracy theories or mental illness combined to create genuine danger for public figures. 3 additional security officers burst into the rose garden, immediately taking in the situation and moving to assist Marcus. The intruder's struggles became even more desperate as he realized he was now outnumbered, but Marcus maintained his grip, determined not to let the man escape or cause any further threat. "Secure the weapon," Marcus called out to his colleagues while maintaining control of the intruder. "Check on Prince George and Mrs. Patterson. I've got this one contained." Officer Sarah Mitchell, who had been asking Marcus about protocol just hours earlier, quickly retrieved the knife and the camera device while two other officers helped Marcus fully subdue the struggling intruder. Her hands were shaking slightly, but her actions were professional and efficient. Mrs. Patterson emerged from behind the fountain with Prince George, who looked pale but unharmed. The young prince's eyes were wide with confusion and concern, but he was clearly trying to be brave in the face of something he didn't fully understand. "Mr. Marcus, are you hurt?" Prince George asked, his voice smaller than usual but still carrying the polite concern that characterized his personality. "I'm fine, Your Royal Highness," Marcus replied, breathing heavily but managing a reassuring smile. "Just doing my job. Are you and Mrs. Patterson okay?" Before either could answer, Prince William's voice could be heard approaching rapidly. The meeting with the charity representatives had clearly been interrupted when the security alert reached the reception room. Marcus could hear multiple footsteps and voices as what sounded like the entire palace security team converged on the Rose Garden. Prince William appeared around the corner at a near run, his face showing the kind of fear that only a parent could understand. When he saw Prince George standing safely beside Mrs. Patterson, visible relief flooded his features, but his attention quickly turned to the scene of Marcus and the other officers restraining the intruder. "George, are you hurt? What happened here?" Prince William asked, immediately moving to his son's side while his eyes took in the entire scene. "A man was trying to get to me with a camera, Papa," Prince George explained with the straightforward honesty of a child. Mr. Marcus stopped him. "There was fighting, and Mrs. Patterson made me hide behind the fountain." Prince William's expression shifted as he processed what his son was telling him. Marcus could see the prince's mind working through the implications of what had almost happened. If Marcus hadn't been in position to intercept the intruder, if the man had reached Prince George before help arrived, if the knife had been used successfully, the possibilities were too terrible to fully contemplate. The intruder, now fully restrained by multiple officers, continued muttering about exposing the truth and showing the world what they really are. His words were becoming increasingly incoherent, suggesting that mental illness might be a significant factor in his actions. Detective Inspector James Crawford arrived within minutes, having been called as soon as the security alert was issued. Marcus knew Crawford well from previous security incidents, and he trusted the detective's ability to handle the investigation properly. "Thompson, I need your immediate report," Crawford said efficiently. "What's the timeline here? And what can you tell me about the suspect's behavior and statements?" Marcus provided a concise but thorough account of everything from the moment he first noticed the suspicious delivery truck through the physical confrontation in the Rose Garden. He made sure to include the intruder's statements about the truth and his apparent fixation on Prince George specifically. Crawford nodded as he listened, occasionally asking clarifying questions about timing or specific details. Marcus could see that the detective was already forming theories about the intruder's motivations and mental state based on the evidence and witness statements. "The device he was carrying," Crawford asked, "did you get a clear look at it before the struggle began?" "It appeared to be a camera with additional components attached," Marcus replied. "I couldn't identify all the components, but it wasn't a standard photography setup. Sarah retrieved it after we subdued the suspect." Officer Mitchell handed the device to Detective Crawford, who examined it carefully without touching it directly. "We'll need to have this analyzed immediately. If there are recording capabilities or transmission equipment, we need to know what this individual was planning to do with any footage he might have obtained." Prince William, who had been quietly comforting Prince George while listening to the investigation unfold, approached Marcus with an expression of profound gratitude mixed with something else, a recognition of what had almost been lost and what Marcus had prevented. "Marcus," Prince William said quietly, "I need to speak with you privately once the immediate investigation is complete. What you did here today." He paused, clearly struggling to find adequate words. "There aren't sufficient words to express what you've done for my family." Marcus felt uncomfortable with the attention and praise. In his mind, he had simply done what any security officer should do when faced with a threat to their charge. But, looking at Prince George's young face and thinking about what might have happened if the situation had unfolded differently, he began to understand the magnitude of what had been prevented. The Rose Garden, which had been a peaceful sanctuary just an hour earlier, now buzzed with investigative activity. Crime scene technicians arrived to document everything, while additional security personnel established a wider perimeter around the area. Mrs. Patterson had taken Prince George inside the palace, away from the continued chaos, and back to the familiar safety of his regular routine. As Marcus provided additional details to Detective Crawford, he couldn't help but reflect on how quickly everything had changed. One moment he had been conducting routine security monitoring, and the next he had been engaged in a life-or-death struggle to protect a child he had watched grow up over the past several years. The investigation would continue for hours, but Marcus knew that the most important outcome had already been achieved. Prince George was safe, the threat had been neutralized, and the security protocols that he had helped develop and maintain over 15 years had proven effective when it mattered most. The investigation into the intruder's background revealed details that made Marcus realize just how dangerous the situation had truly been. Detective Crawford called Marcus into a private briefing room the following morning, where he laid out what the overnight investigation had uncovered about the man who had attempted to reach Prince George. His name is Trevor Whitmore, 34 years old, former military but discharged for psychological reasons 3 years ago, Crawford explained, spreading several documents across the table. He's been under surveillance by counter-terrorism units for the past 8 months due to his increasing obsession with conspiracy theories involving the royal family. Marcus studied the photographs and documents that Crawford showed him. Whitmore had an extensive online presence where he posted increasingly erratic theories about the royal family hiding the truth about their genetic experiments, and claimed that Prince George was the key to exposing their real agenda. The post showed a clear deterioration in mental health over several months. The camera device he was carrying had live streaming capabilities, Crawford continued. He was planning to broadcast whatever confrontation he could provoke with Prince George to thousands of followers who believed in his conspiracy theories. The knife suggests he was prepared to escalate to violence if necessary to get the footage he wanted. The implications hit Marcus like a physical blow. If Whitmore had reached Prince George, the encounter wouldn't have ended with simply taking photographs. The man had been prepared to create a violent spectacle that would be broadcast live to an audience of conspiracy theorists and potentially recorded permanently on the internet. There's more, Crawford said grimly. We found evidence in his apartment that he had been planning this for weeks. Floor plans of the palace, schedules of royal activities, detailed notes about security protocols. Someone has been helping him gather intelligence about palace operations. This revelation transformed what Marcus had initially seen as the successful prevention of a single threat into the exposure of a larger conspiracy. The investigation was expanding to determine who had provided Whitmore with inside information about palace security and royal family schedules. We need you to review everyone who has had access to security information over the past 3 months, Crawford explained. Staff schedules, delivery protocols, visitor arrangements, anything that Whitmore shouldn't have been able to know but clearly did know. Marcus spent the next several hours going through personnel files and security logs with Crawford and other investigators. The process was exhausting and deeply troubling, as it meant suspecting colleagues he had worked with for years. But the evidence was clear that someone with inside access had been feeding information to Whitmore. During a break in the investigation, Prince William asked to speak privately with Marcus in his personal office. The prince looked tired, as though he hadn't slept well since the incident in the Rose Garden. When they were alone, Prince William's formal demeanor dropped, revealing the genuine emotion of a father who had nearly lost his child. "Marcus, I need you to understand something," Prince William began. "What you did yesterday wasn't just professional duty. You risked your own life to protect George, and you did it without hesitation. Catherine and I have been talking about how to properly acknowledge what you've done." Marcus felt uncomfortable with the praise, as he always did when his actions were singled out for attention. "Your Royal Highness, I was simply doing my job. Any officer in my position would have done the same thing." Prince William shook his head firmly. That's not true, and you know it. You made split-second decisions that required courage, training, and genuine care for George's well-being. The investigation has shown us that if you hadn't acted exactly as you did, when you did, the outcome could have been catastrophic. The prince moved to his desk and picked up a small velvet box. I've been authorized by Her Majesty to present you with the Royal Victorian Medal. It's awarded for extraordinary service to the crown, and, in this case, for extraordinary service to my family. Marcus stared at the box, understanding the significance of what was being offered. The Royal Victorian Medal was one of the highest honors that could be bestowed upon someone in his position, personally awarded by the monarch for exceptional service to the royal family. Sir, I'm deeply honored, but I'm not sure this is appropriate, Marcus said carefully. I don't want recognition for doing what any security officer should do. Marcus, Prince William said with a slight smile, you're going to accept this medal because you've earned it, and because George specifically asked me to make sure you were properly thanked for protecting him. Do you really want to disappoint a 10-year-old prince? The mention of Prince George's involvement touched Marcus more than any formal recognition could have. Over the years of protecting the young prince, Marcus had developed a genuine fondness for the boy's curiosity, politeness, and natural kindness toward the palace staff. How is Prince George handling everything? Marcus asked. I know yesterday was frightening for him. He's remarkably resilient, Prince William replied. But he's also asked several times if you were injured during the struggle. He wants to thank you personally, if you're comfortable with that. Before Marcus could respond, there was a soft knock on the office door. Prince William called for whoever it was to enter, and Prince George appeared in the doorway, looking somewhat formal in his afternoon clothes, but carrying himself with the same natural dignity that Marcus had watched develop over the years. Papa, is this when I can thank Mr. Marcus? Prince George asked politely. Yes, George. Come in, Prince William said warmly. Prince George approached Marcus with the careful manners he had been taught, but also with obvious genuine emotion. Mr. Marcus, I wanted to thank you for protecting me yesterday. Papa explained that the man wanted to hurt me, and that you stopped him even though it was dangerous. Marcus knelt down so that he was at eye level with Prince George, a gesture that felt natural despite the formal setting. Your Royal Highness, I'm just glad that you and Mrs. Patterson are safe. That's the most important thing. Papa says you're getting a special medal for being brave, Prince George continued. I think that's very good, because what you did was very brave indeed. The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Catherine, the Princess of Wales, who had clearly come to add her personal thanks to her husband's formal recognition. Marcus stood and bowed respectfully as she entered the office. Marcus, I'm so sorry I wasn't here yesterday when everything happened, Catherine said warmly. William has told me everything, and I can't adequately express how grateful we are. As a mother, knowing that someone was willing to put themselves in danger to protect George. She paused, clearly emotional. Your Royal Highness, I'm just grateful that I was in position to help, Marcus replied. Prince George is a remarkable young man, and protecting him is both an honor and a responsibility that I take very seriously. The medal presentation was scheduled for the following week, but Prince William insisted on making the announcement immediately to palace staff and security personnel. He wanted everyone to understand that Marcus's actions represented the highest standards of their profession and deserved recognition. Word of the incident and Marcus's heroism spread quickly through the palace staff. Colleagues who had worked with Marcus for years expressed their pride in his actions, but also their lack of surprise. Many of them shared stories of Marcus's dedication, professionalism, and genuine care for the royal family's well-being over his 15 years of service. Mrs. Patterson, who had witnessed the entire confrontation in the Rose Garden, sought Marcus out the next day to express her personal gratitude. As someone who had devoted her career to caring for royal children, she understood better than most how close they had come to a genuine tragedy. Marcus, I've seen many security incidents over the years, she told him privately. But I've never seen anyone react with such immediate courage and effectiveness. George talks about you as one of his favorite people at the palace, and yesterday you proved why that trust is so well placed. The ongoing investigation continued to reveal disturbing details about the conspiracy that had enabled Whitmore's attack. Crawford updated Marcus regularly on their progress, partly because Marcus's insight into palace operations was valuable to the investigation, but also because his actions had made him a key witness to the entire incident. "We've identified the inside source," Crawford told Marcus during one of their briefings. It was someone in the catering staff who had access to daily schedules and visitor information. She'd been feeding details to Whitmore for several weeks, apparently believing his conspiracy theories about the royal family. The revelation that someone Marcus had worked alongside for years had been secretly working to endanger Prince George was deeply unsettling. It reinforced his understanding that threats could emerge from anywhere, even from within the supposedly secure environment of the palace itself. "The catering staff member has been arrested and is cooperating with our investigation," Crawford continued. "But we're still working to determine if there are other individuals involved in this network. Your incident with Whitmore appears to have disrupted something much larger than a single individual's obsession." As the week progressed toward the medal ceremony, Marcus found himself reflecting on his 15 years of service at the palace. He had always taken pride in his work, but the events in the Rose Garden had crystallized for him just how important his role truly was. The relationship between protector and protected wasn't just professional. It was deeply personal, built on years of shared experiences and mutual respect. Prince George made a point of speaking to Marcus whenever they encountered each other in the palace corridors, always polite, but also clearly more aware now of the security that surrounded his daily life. The incident had matured him in some ways, giving him a better understanding of why certain protocols existed and why his safety required constant vigilance. The investigation's expansion into counterterrorism territory meant that Marcus would likely be involved in ongoing security reviews and protocol updates. His actions had not only prevented a specific threat, but had also exposed vulnerabilities that needed to be addressed to prevent similar incidents in the future. Detective Crawford assured Marcus that his career would not be negatively affected by the investigation's findings about internal security breaches. If anything, his quick thinking and effective response had probably prevented what could have been a much larger scandal involving the royal family's safety and security protocols. The morning of the medal ceremony arrived with typical London weather. Overcast skies that threatened rain but seemed to hold back, as if respecting the significance of the day. Marcus had spent the previous evening preparing his dress uniform, pressing every crease and polishing every button until they gleamed. Despite his discomfort with formal recognition, he understood that this ceremony represented something larger than personal acknowledgement. Princess Catherine had insisted that Marcus's family be present for the ceremony. His wife Helen, whom he had married 20 years earlier, arrived at the palace with their daughter Emma, now 17 and about to begin university. Marcus rarely brought his family to his workplace, preferring to keep his professional and personal lives separate, but today was clearly an exception. Helen Thompson had lived with the realities of her husband's job for nearly 2 decades. She understood the risks involved in protecting the royal family, but she had never imagined that Marcus would find himself in a life-threatening confrontation to protect Prince George. When she learned the full details of what had happened in the Rose Garden, her pride in her husband was mixed with the sobering realization of how differently things could have ended. "I'm so proud of you, Dad," Emma told Marcus as they prepared to enter the palace's formal reception room where the ceremony would take place. "When my friends at school heard about what you did, they couldn't believe I was related to a real hero." Marcus smiled at his daughter's enthusiasm while feeling somewhat overwhelmed by the attention. Emma had grown up hearing occasional stories about her father's work, but the royal family had always seemed like distant figures to her. Now she was about to meet Prince William personally and witness her father receive one of the highest honors available to someone in his profession. The reception room had been arranged specifically for this ceremony. Prince William stood near a small podium, wearing his formal military dress uniform, while several other members of the royal household staff were present to witness the proceedings. Marcus noticed that many of his security colleagues had been invited to attend, creating an atmosphere that felt both formal and genuinely personal. Prince George stood beside his father, also dressed formally but clearly excited to be part of the ceremony. At 10 years old, he understood that something important was happening, and his presence added a layer of meaning to the recognition that Marcus found deeply moving. Detective Crawford was also present, representing the broader law enforcement community that had been involved in the investigation following Whitmore's attack. The investigation had concluded with several arrests, including the catering staff member who had provided inside information and 2 other individuals who had been part of the conspiracy network. "Ladies and gentlemen," Prince William began, his voice carrying easily through the reception room. "We are gathered today to recognize extraordinary courage and dedication to duty. Marcus Thompson has served this household with distinction for 15 years, but his actions 1 week ago exemplified the very best of what it means to protect and serve." Prince William went on to describe the events in the Rose Garden, though he kept the details appropriate for the mixed audience that included family members and staff who hadn't been directly involved. His account emphasized Marcus's quick thinking, physical courage, and unwavering commitment to protecting Prince George even at personal risk. The Royal Victorian Medal is awarded for exceptional service to the Crown, Prince William continued. In this case, it recognizes not just one moment of heroism, but 15 years of dedicated service that prepared Marcus Thompson to act decisively when it mattered most. Marcus stepped forward as his name was called, feeling the weight of the moment and the attention of everyone present. As Prince William pinned the medal to his uniform, Marcus felt a profound sense of completion, not just of this particular incident, but of his entire career of service to the royal family. "Thank you, Your Royal Highness," Marcus said quietly. "It has been my honor to serve your family." "The honor has been ours, Marcus," Prince William replied, equally quietly. "Your service to my son and my family will never be forgotten." Prince George stepped forward with the confidence that had been carefully nurtured throughout his young life. "Mr. Marcus, I have something I wanted to give you too," he said, holding out a small wrapped package. Inside the package, Marcus found a hand-drawn picture that Prince George had created. It showed 2 figures in what was clearly the palace rose garden, one large figure protecting a smaller one, with the words, "Thank you, Mr. Marcus, for keeping me safe," written in careful 10-year-old handwriting at the bottom. Marcus found himself unexpectedly emotional as he looked at Prince George's gift. In all his years of professional service, nothing had touched him quite like this simple, heartfelt expression of gratitude from the child he had protected. "Thank you, Your Royal Highness," Marcus said, kneeling down to Prince George's level. "This is very special, and I will treasure it." The formal ceremony concluded with photographs and brief conversations between the royal family and Marcus's family members. Helen Thompson found herself in conversation with Princess Catherine about the challenges of being married to someone in a high-risk profession, while Emma spoke excitedly with Prince George about school and his interests. Detective Crawford approached Marcus as the formal proceedings were winding down. "Marcus, I wanted to update you on the final resolution of our investigation. Trevor Whitmore has been sentenced to 8 years in prison for attempted kidnapping, weapons charges, and conspiracy. The others involved in providing him information received shorter sentences, but will all serve significant prison time." The news provided a sense of closure to the events that had begun 1 week earlier in the Rose Garden. Marcus felt satisfied that justice had been served, but, more importantly, that the security vulnerabilities exposed by the incident had been addressed to prevent similar threats in the future. "There's something else," Crawford continued. "The investigation revealed that Whitmore's group had been planning similar attacks on other members of the royal family. Your quick action not only protected Prince George, but likely prevented a series of escalating incidents that could have endangered multiple family members." This revelation added another dimension to the significance of Marcus's actions. What had seemed like a successful response to a single threat had actually disrupted a broader campaign of harassment and potential violence directed at the royal family. Prince William overheard part of this conversation and joined them. "Marcus, Detective Crawford is right. The investigation showed that what you prevented was far more serious than any of us initially realized. Your instincts and training quite literally saved not just George, but potentially prevented attacks on other family members." As the ceremony concluded and guests began to leave, Marcus found himself in a quiet moment with Prince George. The young prince had been remarkably composed throughout the formal proceedings, but now he seemed to want to express something more personal. "Mr. Marcus," Prince George said quietly, "I know that what happened was very dangerous for you. Mrs. Patterson explained that you could have been hurt protecting me. I want you to know that I understand how brave you were." Marcus was struck by the maturity in Prince George's words. The incident had clearly affected the young prince profoundly, giving him insights into the realities of his protected life that most children his age never had to consider. "Your Royal Highness, protecting you is something I chose to do, and I'm honored to be trusted with that responsibility," Marcus replied. "You have nothing to worry about or feel guilty about. My job is to make sure you can grow up safely and normally." The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of other members of the security staff who wanted to congratulate Marcus personally. Over his 15 years at the palace, Marcus had earned the respect and friendship of colleagues throughout the security organization, and their pride in his recognition was clearly genuine. Sarah Mitchell, the newer security officer who had assisted during the incident, approached Marcus with obvious emotion. "Marcus, I wanted to thank you for all the training and mentoring you've given me since I started here. Watching how you handled everything last week showed me what this job really means." Her words reminded Marcus that his role at the palace extended beyond immediate security duties to include training and mentoring newer staff members. His example of professionalism and dedication had influenced many colleagues over the years, creating a culture of excellence that benefited the entire security organization. As the afternoon progressed, Marcus realized that this ceremony marked not just recognition for one incident, but a transition point in his career. The events in the Rose Garden had elevated his profile within the royal household and the broader security community. He would likely be called upon to share his expertise in training programs and security planning for other royal residences and events. The medal ceremony concluded with a private dinner for Marcus's family hosted by Prince William and Princess Catherine. The informal setting allowed for conversations that went beyond the day's formal recognition to include discussions about family, career goals, and the unique challenges of working in royal protection. During dinner, Princess Catherine asked Marcus about his plans for the remainder of his career. At 42, he had many productive years ahead of him, and the recognition he had received would likely open new opportunities for advancement within the royal security organization. "I hope to continue serving here at the palace for many more years," Marcus replied. "Watching Prince George grow up has been one of the most rewarding aspects of my career. If I can continue contributing to his safety and the security of your family, I can't imagine a more fulfilling way to spend my professional life." Prince William nodded with obvious satisfaction. "Marcus, I hope you know that you will always have a place here. Your dedication and professionalism represent the very best of what we hope for in the people who serve our family." As the evening concluded and Marcus's family prepared to leave the palace, he reflected on how completely his life had been changed by the events of one afternoon in the Rose Garden. What had begun as a routine security shift had ended with royal recognition, national media attention, and a profound deepening of his relationship with the family he served. 6 months after the medal ceremony, Marcus Thompson found his life had settled into a new rhythm that incorporated both his traditional security duties and the additional responsibilities that came with his elevated profile within the Royal Protection Service. The Royal Victorian Medal he had received was displayed prominently in his home office, but more meaningful to him was Prince George's hand-drawn picture, which he had framed and placed on his desk at work. The investigation's conclusion had revealed the full extent of the threat that Marcus had disrupted. Trevor Whitmore's conspiracy network had included 12 individuals across England who were planning coordinated attacks on various royal family members. The security improvements implemented following Marcus's heroic action had not only protected the immediate royal family, but had also led to enhanced protection protocols for extended family members and royal residences throughout the kingdom. Marcus had been promoted to Senior Protection Officer, a position that involved training new security personnel and developing improved threat assessment protocols. His experience in recognizing and responding to the Whitmore threat had become a case study used in training programs for royal protection officers throughout the United Kingdom. The key lesson from Marcus Thompson's response: he would tell new recruits during training sessions, is that effective security requires constant vigilance combined with the willingness to trust your instincts even when a situation appears routine. The moment I noticed something unusual about that delivery driver, every subsequent decision was based on treating the threat as real until proven otherwise. Prince George, now approaching his 11th birthday, had developed a more sophisticated understanding of the security that surrounded his daily life. He often stopped to chat with Marcus during his walks through the palace corridors, and their conversations revealed a young man who was thoughtful about the responsibilities that came with his position in the royal family. "Mr. Marcus," Prince George said during one of their conversations, "I've been thinking about what happened in the Rose Garden. Do you think there will be other people who want to hurt our family?" Marcus appreciated Prince George's directness and his obvious maturity in thinking about these difficult realities. "Your Royal Highness, there will always be people who have problems with the royal family for various reasons. But there are also many people like me whose job it is to make sure you and your family stay safe. The important thing is for you to live your life normally while trusting the people around you to handle any problems that might arise." These conversations had become increasingly important to Marcus as he recognized his role in helping Prince George develop a healthy perspective on the security considerations that would be part of his life forever. The balance between maintaining appropriate caution and allowing normal development was delicate, but Marcus felt privileged to contribute to Prince George's understanding of these complexities. Detective Crawford had remained in contact with Marcus throughout the months following the incident. The broader investigation into conspiracy networks targeting the royal family had expanded internationally, leading to arrests in several other countries and the disruption of online communities that promoted violence against public figures. "Your quick action that day didn't just protect Prince George," Crawford told Marcus during one of their periodic briefings. "It led us to uncover an international network of individuals who were sharing information and coordinating potential attacks. We estimate that your intervention prevented at least 3 other serious threats from reaching the planning stage." This ongoing investigation had also led to Marcus being consulted by security agencies in other countries that protected their own royal families and heads of state. His first-hand experience with recognizing and responding to insider-assisted threats had become valuable intelligence for improving security protocols internationally. Prince William had made good on his promise that Marcus would always have a place at the palace. But more than job security, the royal family had incorporated Marcus into their extended circle of trusted advisors and friends. He was regularly consulted on security matters involving the children's education, travel plans, and public appearances. "Marcus has become far more than just security staff to our family," Prince William explained during a private conversation about long-term security planning. "His judgment and dedication have earned him a level of trust that goes beyond his formal duties. When we're considering anything that might affect the children's safety, Marcus's perspective is one of the first we seek." This elevated level of trust came with additional responsibilities that Marcus took very seriously. He found himself involved in planning Prince George's education and activities, ensuring that security considerations were balanced with the need for normal childhood experiences. The media attention following Marcus's recognition had eventually subsided, but he occasionally received letters from members of the public expressing gratitude for his service or sharing their own stories of dedication to protecting others. These communications reminded him that his actions had resonated beyond the immediate royal family to inspire others in similar protective roles. One letter that particularly moved Marcus came from a school security guard in Manchester who wrote, "Watching the news about what you did for Prince George reminded me why I chose this profession. Every day I come to work thinking about the children I'm here to protect. And your example shows me what real dedication looks like." Emma Thompson, now in her first year at university, had chosen to study criminology and security studies, partly inspired by her father's career and his recognition for heroism. She often called Marcus to discuss her coursework and her growing understanding of the complexities involved in protective services. "Dad, learning about threat assessment and security planning has given me such appreciation for what you do every day," Emma told him during one of their conversations. "I never realized how much thought and training goes into keeping people safe. It's made me incredibly proud of your career." Helen Thompson had also found herself changed by the events and their aftermath. Her husband's heroism and recognition had brought new attention to the families of security personnel, and she had become involved in support networks for spouses of people in high-risk protective services. Living with someone whose job involves potential danger is something most people don't understand, Helen explained during a meeting of security families. Marcus's recognition showed people that the risks our spouses face are real, but it also showed that their training and dedication can make all the difference when it matters most. As Marcus approached his 16th anniversary of service at the palace, he often reflected on how the incident in the Rose Garden had transformed not just his career, but his entire understanding of his role in protecting the royal family. What had begun as a job had evolved into a calling that involved genuine personal relationships with the people he served. Prince George continued to grow and develop into a remarkable young man who combined natural curiosity with increasing awareness of his future responsibilities. Marcus took pride in knowing that he had played a small part in ensuring that Prince George could develop normally while remaining safe from those who might wish him harm. The security improvements implemented following Marcus's heroic action had created a safer environment for all members of the royal family. Enhanced threat assessment protocols, improved coordination between different security agencies, and better training for recognizing potential insider threats had all contributed to a more robust protective framework. The changes we've made based on lessons learned from Marcus's experience have prevented at least 6 other potential incidents over the past 6 months, reported the head of royal security during a confidential briefing. His quick thinking and effective response created a learning opportunity that has benefited the entire royal protection system. Marcus had been asked to write a manual on threat recognition and response that would be used to train security personnel at royal residences throughout the Commonwealth. The project allowed him to formalize the instincts and experience he had developed over 16 years of service, creating a resource that would help protect royal families for generations to come. The manual's introduction read, "Effective protection requires more than following established procedures. It demands constant awareness, willingness to trust trained instincts, and absolute commitment to the people we serve. The moment we become complacent or assume that threats cannot emerge from unexpected sources, we put those we protect at risk." As Marcus completed his daily rounds through the palace corridors, he often passed the Rose Garden, where everything had changed 6 months earlier. The garden had been completely restored, with new rose bushes planted where the original ones had been damaged during the struggle with Whitmore. But Marcus would never see that space the same way again. The garden now represented something profound about the nature of protection and service. It was a place where training, instinct, courage, and dedication had combined in a moment of crisis to prevent tragedy. It was also a reminder that the most important victories in his profession were often invisible to the public: threats prevented, dangers avoided, and safe lives that could continue normally because someone was willing to stand between them and harm. Prince George often played in the Rose Garden now, his laughter and energy transforming it back into the peaceful sanctuary it was meant to be. For Marcus, watching Prince George enjoy that space safely was the greatest reward he could imagine for his years of service and his moment of heroism. The Royal Victorian Medal would always remind Marcus of one extraordinary day, but the real measure of his success was much simpler. A young prince who could grow up safely, exploring rose gardens, and living the normal childhood that every child deserved, protected by people who understood that some responsibilities were worth any risk.